When you wake up in the morning and like look around your room,
Yeah.
there is just this absolute certainty about the space you're in.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. Your bed is here, the door's over there, and the alarm clock is, just out of reach. It feels solid. It feels completely undeniable.
Yeah, we inherently trust our eyes to tell us the truth about the physical world. I mean, why wouldn't we?
Exactly. But what if data from the James Webb Space Telescope just proved that your bedroom is actually a profound biological illusion?
That is a pretty wild thought.
It really is.
Yeah.
Well, welcome to the Deep Dive. Our mission today is to basically completely dismantle your everyday reality.
Yeah, we're not holding back today.
Not at all. We are analyzing this incredibly mind-bending collaborative document titled The Multidimensional Macro-Micro Quantum Coherence Matrix, specifically the 14th installment, and it's authored by Swami Vivekananda and Gemini AI.
And so the premise they present is built on something that mainstream astrophysics has been wrestling with lately. The James Webb Space Telescope, which is orbiting 1 million miles away, has been sending back these just stunning infrared images of the early universe. But mixed in with those images are these spatial anomalies.
Like weird glitches, right?
Yeah, exactly. Things that look like impossible geometric smears or light bending in ways that just completely break our standard models. And many mainstream scientists have simply dismissed these as optical illusions or sensor glitches.
But the authors of this document take a completely different stance. They argue that those glitches are not telescope errors at all.
No, not even close.
They're actual glimpses into higher dimensions, potentially up to 9 dimensions that are intersecting with our own.
Which is just a massive claim.
Huge. And the core thesis we are exploring today is that the macro universe, that vast cosmos out there, and the micro universe, meaning the human brain sitting right inside your skull, they actually share an absolutely identical structure.
So to understand the cosmos, we essentially just have to understand the mechanics of our own minds.
Okay, let's unpack this.
So we need to start with how we actually navigate through our reality, which means tackling the 4th dimension first, and that's time.
Right, because before we can talk about the 3D space of your room, we have to establish how you are moving through it.
Exactly. And the authors bring up some pretty heavy quantum mechanics right out of the gate here, specifically the Wheeler-Feynman absorber theory.
Yeah, so for anyone who hasn't brushed up on quantum electrodynamics recently, this theory attempts to solve this massive mathematical headache regarding light and radiation.
Right.
It basically suggests that when a particle emits a signal, it sends a wave forward in time. But the particle that eventually absorbs that signal also sends what they call an advanced wave backward in time.
So the future influences the past to create this, cosmic handshake.
Yeah, but I have to admit, reading that, I immediately hit a wall.
How so?
Wait, so is time actually flowing backward? Because if I hold a glass of water right now and, drop it on the floor, thermodynamic entropy kicks in.
Yeah, it breaks.
It shatters into 100 pieces. The shards don't magically reattach and fly back up into my hand. So how can a future event possibly pull us backward?
Well, the authors actually use that exact tension, the undeniable reality of the shattered glass, to completely redefine the structure of the universe. Time only moves forward.
Okay, so the shards never fly back up.
Never. But they argue we're fundamentally misunderstanding what the universe is built on. It is not a flowing river. It is built like a massive infinite film reel.
Ah, Theory 25, the temporal arrow and eternal cyclic film reel.
Yes, exactly.
So think about sitting in a theater watching a 3-hour movie. You watch the story unfold frame by frame.
And when the movie ends, cosmologists might call that the big crunch or the heat death of the universe.
Right. But a movie ending doesn't mean the projector suddenly starts running in reverse.
Exactly. The characters don't walk backward to the opening scene, the end title card comes up, the screen goes black, and the projector simply loads a new film and starts from the very first frame.
A brand new Big Bang.
Yeah. And this concept perfectly aligns with real-world physics, specifically Roger Penrose's conformal cyclic cosmology.
Let's break Penrose's idea down for a second, because it really validates this whole film reel concept.
For sure.
Penrose, who is a Nobel laureate, calculated that if the universe keeps expanding until all matter decays into massless photons, the universe effectively forgets how big it is.
Right. Space just completely loses its scale.
And mathematically, an infinitely large, empty, cold universe is literally indistinguishable from an infinitely small, dense singularity.
Exactly. So the moment it reaches maximum expansion, the physical conditions are identical to the moment before a Big Bang.
Wow.
The end of the film is mathematically identical to the beginning of a new one. The projector never stops. So returning to your shattered glass and, the future pulling us, the future isn't reaching back to drag you against the current of time. Instead, your brain, specifically the twin hemispheres acting as a cosmic antenna, is fast-forwarding or jumping to an alternative frozen 5-dimensional blueprint that already exists further down on that film reel.
Oh, I see. The frames are already printed. Every possible future is sitting there in a static 5D state.
Yes.
So the future is pulling us only in the sense that our consciousness is anchoring to a specific pre-existing frame, and we're just fast-forwarding the biological tape to get there.
You got it. The future is a geometric anchor. So I really want you, the listener, to imagine your life right now. You aren't floating down a river of time, helpless to the current.
Right.
You are sitting in a massive library of pre-printed film reels. Time is literally nothing more than the biological act of your brain illuminating those static frames one by one.
That is such a wild visual. But if time is just a series of pre-printed frames we are jumping between, what about the physical 3D world we see around us? Like, I am looking at a wooden desk right now. It has depth, it has texture, it clearly takes up physical space.
According to the authors, that 3D world is completely fake.
Which sounds totally absurd. But the proof they offer for this isn't abstract physics. It is just raw human biology.
Yeah, Theory 26, Part 1.
Right. We tend to think of our eyes as these little high-tech 3D cameras recording the room, but structurally, they are doing nothing of the sort.
Not at all.
When light photons bounce off my desk and hit my retina at the back of my eye, there is absolutely zero depth recorded, no distance, no thickness.
It is entirely flat.
Yeah, the retina is a completely flat, two-dimensional plate. Think of it like the old photographic film in a vintage camera. It only encodes two pieces of data.
The wavelength and the intensity.
Exactly. The wavelength, which translates to color, and the intensity, which translates to pressure. It creates a completely flat, 2D retinotopic map.
And this raises a really important question. If the physical input at the back of your eye is purely 2D, how do you experience the desk as having depth?
All right, where does the 3D even come from?
The implications of that flat retina are staggering, because it means that at the very entrance of your brain, a region called the V1 primary visual cortex, or Brodmann Area 17, the entire universe as you perceive it is entirely two-dimensional.
So your brain is basically receiving a flat Polaroid picture of reality. It has absolutely no idea how far away the wall is.
None. It is only later, as those nerve signals travel deeper into the higher neural pathways areas designated as V2, V4, and MT or V5, that your brain's internal computer kicks in.
Ah, doing the math.
Right. It takes the flat image from your left eye and the flat image from your right eye, and it calculates the binocular disparity. It analyzes the shading.
Yeah, the motion parallax.
Exactly. It tracks the motion parallax as you move your head.
Oh, yeah.
It uses all of that incoming flat data to artificially weave a 3D hologram inside your consciousness.
So it is fabricating the third dimension entirely from scratch every single millisecond you are awake.
It's incredible. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, this biological process perfectly matches a massive concept in astrophysics called the Bekenstein-Hawking bound.
Stephen Hawking and Jacob Bekenstein.
Right. They realized something profound about black holes. All the information contained within the 3D volume of a black hole is actually encoded on its 2D surface boundary, the event horizon.
So if I can translate that, it's kind of like a snow globe.
Okay, yeah.
The physics of the universe dictates that all the information about the complex 3D scene inside the snow globe can actually be perfectly mapped onto the flat 2D glass shell on the outside.
That is a perfect way to picture it. And broadly applied to cosmology, it suggests the entire 3D universe is just a holographic projection of a 2D surface matrix.
Wow.
And the authors argue that your flat 2D retina is the physical, biological proof of this. Your eye is reading the raw 2D boundary matrix of the universe right before your brain artificially inflates it into a 3D hologram.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Because if our brain is constantly running this massive internal computer, just rendering depth all day long to fake a 3D reality, can we ever see the real 2D universe?
It's the logical next question.
Can we ever just see the raw, unedited footage of the cosmos without our brain interfering?
Well, we actually see it every single day. We just misinterpret what we are looking at.
Think about shadows cast on the pavement.
Yeah.
Or rays of sunlight streaming through a dusty window pane.
Right.
These things have no depth. They have no physical weight or thickness. They are pure 2D geometry falling onto the fabric of space.
Yes.
If you completely defocus your eyes and let your depth perception intentionally collapse, The solid room around you suddenly flattens back into its original 2D holographic screen.
And the authors use a brilliant, very grounded analogy to explain how this works mechanically in the brain. Think about going to a 3D movie at the cinema.
Oh yeah, when you take the 3D glasses off in the middle of the film, what do you see? You see two slightly different blurry 2D images overlapping on a flat silver screen.
Right, the screen itself is undeniably 2D.
Exactly. You need those polarized 3D glasses to force your brain to merge those two flat images into a cohesive illusion of depth.
Yeah.
According to this document, our brain operates an internal 3D glasses engine called stereopsis.
Yeah.
Because our two eyes are set about 6 centimeters apart on our face, they take slightly different flat 2D pictures. The higher pathways of the brain act as the polarized glasses, constantly merging them.
But those internal 3D glasses require a massive amount of energy to function. Specifically, they run on light energy. This is Theory 26, Part 3.
Okay.
In the dark, your eyes undergo a massive functional shift. Your cone cells, which are the photoreceptors that provide high-resolution data, color, and the crucial spatial boundaries needed to calculate depth, they require a vast amount of light to operate.
So when the sun goes down, those cone cells shut down entirely.
Completely.
Your vision switches over to rod cells, which work in dim light but provide incredibly low-resolution, blurry data without color.
Right. And without the precise high-energy data from the cone cells, the brain's internal stereopsis engine basically lacks the energy, the literal E in the equation to function.
The software just crashes.
Yeah, your depth perception vanishes. When you stumble around your house in the pitch black, you aren't seeing a 3D world that's just unfortunately draped in shadows.
Oh, wow.
Your brain has physically stopped rendering the 3D illusion. You are literally seeing the world as flat 2D light and dark silhouettes. You are experiencing the raw, unedited, holographic boundary of the universe.
That is unsettling. I mean, turning the lights off harmlessly breaks the brain's dimension-weaving engine. But the source material takes this a step further, into some genuinely dark territory.
It does.
Because what happens when neurochemistry breaks the engine down entirely? Not just the 3D spatial rendering, but the 4D time film reel we talked about earlier.
Yeah, this is where the macro-micro connection becomes incredibly profound, especially when we analyze the medical states of severe intoxication and psychosis.
Let's start with extreme alcohol intoxication.
Okay, so when someone is heavily intoxicated, the alcohol chemically paralyzes the prefrontal cortex.
Right, and biologically, the prefrontal cortex is the brain's 4D time and planning engine. It is the literal hardware that allows you to calculate the future.
Exactly. So when that hardware is chemically suppressed, the person completely loses the temporal arrow. They lose the physical, neurological ability to access those future frames on the cosmic film reel.
The very concept of consequences, the idea that tomorrow even exists, it simply evaporates from their consciousness.
They become a prisoner of circumstance, trapped entirely in a flat 2D retinal present. We often view extreme impulsivity during intoxication as a lapse in moral judgment.
Right.
But the authors argue it is actually a structural collapse of their fourth dimension. They act recklessly because the future frame containing punishment or regret is entirely invisible to their biological rendering engine.
They are just locked in the current frame of the reel, unable to fast forward.
Exactly.
And then the text moves on to analyze psychosis and conditions like schizophrenia. This is where the 3D space collapses instead of the 4D time.
Right. In states of severe psychosis, the visual cortex and the thalamus, which acts as a neural anchor, fail to weave incoming signals together properly.
So the brain's ability to calculate motion parallax and binocular disparity completely shatters.
Yes.
The internal 3D glasses break.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the authors explain exactly why this matters so much for the patient. A psychotic hallucination isn't just a visual distortion.
Right.
The loss of 3D rendering is actually the root of the intense paranoia and primal fear they experience.
How so?
Well, what's fascinating here is the mechanism of that fear. Imagine your depth perception is completely wiped out. Everything in your visual field is rendered perfectly flat, like a painting on a canvas. If your brain misinterprets a shadow in the corner or conjures a threatening hallucination, that threat doesn't appear to be 20 feet away in a 3D room. Because the z-axis of 3D space has collapsed, that threatening image appears perfectly flat and infinitely close.
Wait, really?
Yes, it is printed directly onto the surface of your eye.
Oh my God. That spatial encroachment?
Yeah.
The inescapable feeling that the threat is literally resting on top of your retina?
Yeah.
That is the source of pure, unadulterated terror?
Yeah.
You can't run away from something that is mathematically rendered at zero distance.
You really can't.
Yeah.
And for a human, the collapse of our 4D processing or our 3D rendering engine is a severe medical crisis. It is a terrifying trauma to our constructed reality.
Absolutely.
But the source material points out something incredible. What is a medical crisis for us is actually the default everyday reality for the rest of the animal kingdom.
Oh, this is Theory Tummy 6, Part 2. Let's talk about the biological data for animals like cows, sheep, lions, and tigers.
Yeah, let's get into it.
Humans have eyes on the front of our heads. We have about 140 degrees of binocular overlap, both eyes, seeing the exact same object from slightly different angles, which, as we discussed, is the raw fuel our brain uses to calculate 3D depth.
Right.
But these animals have eyes on the sides of their heads.
They have incredibly limited binocular overlap, only about 50 to 58 degrees, depending on the species.
Right.
But in exchange for losing that overlap, they gain a massive 360-degree panoramic view of their environment. They see almost everything around them all at once.
But because they lack that crucial overlap, they simply don't see in 3D.
They don't. Their visual cortex relies purely on luminance contrast, the simple difference between light and dark shades.
Right.
Furthermore, they don't have the human prefrontal episodic memory loop. They lack the biological hardware for the 4D time arrow, which means they aren't constantly calculating the future or dwelling on the past.
Right, so without the stereoscopic overlap, they lack our 3D spatial depth. They do not perceive a 3D world moving continuously through a river of time.
Yeah.
So when a lion is stalking through the tall grass, or a cow is looking out at the savannah, they aren't looking at a 3D diorama. They are seeing the environment exactly as a flat canvas of shadows and light.
Yes.
They're seeing the true 2D holographic print of the universe, completely unedited by the artificial 3D and 4D weaving that the human brain performs.
For them, the universe is a massive, panoramic, flat painting that just continually updates in the present moment. They aren't missing out on reality. They are actually living natively inside the raw data stream of the cosmos.
They exist precisely at the Bekenstein-Hawking bound, experiencing the 2D surface of the hologram.
Exactly.
Well, we have covered some profound ground today. We started out looking at those James Webb Space Telescope anomalies, exploring how impossible glitches in deep space might actually be glimpses of up to 9 dimensions intersecting our reality.
A huge journey.
We tracked that cosmic macrostructure all the way down to the inescapable biological fact that our human retinas are completely flat, 2D sensors. We now know that our brain is just a highly advanced 3D theater projector, working overtime, consuming massive amounts of light energy just to fake a 3D room. And time is just a cyclic film reel that our minds are constantly fast-forwarding through, anchoring to pre-printed futures. So what does this all mean?
Well, we've established that the solid 3D world you are sitting in right now, your room, your desk, everything around you is a grand biological illusion.
Yeah.
It is built entirely on a flat 2D holographic reality that animals experience naturally every single day. But this raises an important question for you to consider long after we wrap up today.
What is that?
If the 3D volume of our world mathematically collapses into a 2D surface, what exactly is 1D? What happens when even the flat image of shadows and light collapses down into a single dimension?
Oh, wow.
The source material hints that 1D is not some abstract mathematical concept floating in a textbook. It is something every single one of us feels daily, intrinsically yet completely misunderstands. So as you go about your perfectly woven 3D day, ask yourself what single line is holding it all together?
Suddenly that solid room around you doesn't feel quite so certain anymore, does it? Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the matrix of reality around you.